Good evening. Good evening. Is everybody ready for this to action? All right. Well, here we go. Good evening, and thank each and every one of you for attending this age-old tradition of community democracy. On behalf of the Davis Bay Community Association, I would like to thank the candidates for attending this meeting. We understand that you've been very, very busy, and we thank you for the time to get to know each and every one of you tonight. We all come here tonight with shared goals, providing a vision for our community that can set us up for everything that will come our way in the future. And future generations can look back on the trees that we planted, despite us never sitting in their shade. I would like to acknowledge this beautiful place we call home, as we are nearest to the very important Shisha village of Chokum, or Wilson Creek, a village used in time and immemorial for catching, smoking, and preserving salmon, unceded and traditional lands in the Swia of the Shisha people. In my opinion, this is the most beautiful and amazing part of the Sunshine Coast. I would also like to recognize that most of us here tonight either work, play, or live in Chatlich or Sechelt. Tonight, this could be the last all candidates debate for Sechelt candidates before the October 15th election. So let's go through how the night will work. Tonight, we will not be doing introductions, as we've had many opportunities to hear your introductions. Tonight, we will get straight to the questions curated by the Davis Bay Community Association members. In the interest of full disclosure, despite living just down the road, I have had no input into the questions this evening. Tonight's order will be determined by a random draw for each question and will continue to the candidate's right. Candidates will be notified when they have 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and 10 seconds by a blue card, an orange card, and finally a red when time is up. We have 5 questions to present to you this evening. All council and mayoral candidates will be asked the same questions. You'll have 1 minute and 15 seconds to answer all the questions tonight. As we have seen how hard 1 minute timelines have been, we have decided to give you a little more time to present your views. Yeah, well, it's a lot of words in 15 seconds. That's right. Oh yeah, all of them at the same time. If at any time during the evening you feel as a candidate that you need a rebuttal to a fellow candidate's comments, please raise your hand and I will be watching. And after all candidates have answered, I will address you and you can have 30 seconds to address what you need to. You will only have one chance each to do that during tonight's meeting. As far as questions from the audience, I've been asked already, the Davis Bay Community Association has placed a box at the front door. If you have questions for candidates, please place them in the box with your contact information and who the question is directed to. And immediately following the event tonight, the Community Association will send those questions off to the candidates for the chance for them to respond to you directly. At this point, I would like to remind all candidates and people in attendance this evening that this is being live streamed on the Davis Bay Community Association YouTube channel and will be recorded for time immemorial. Now I ask the candidates, any questions before we get going? Okay. So without further ado, let's get into those questions. And our first question tonight is going to be on water. The background for this is we know that the previous district of Sechelt all candidates meetings that the nominees for mayor and council have stated that water supply as their top priority. In our neighborhood, Homies, the Havies subdivision, has floor plans for their 99-lot subdivision, and most of the plans have 6 bathrooms per home. There is a total of 212 dwelling units being fit into these 99 lots with 522 bathrooms, not including any bathrooms in potential laneway homes in the future. Where there are numerous other developments taking place around Sechelt, like Trellis, West Sechelt, Telus Living, and more, and yet residents are on track to spend at least a quarter of the year in stage 3, stage 4, and stage 5 water restrictions, and being told by the SCRD to conserve as much water as we possibly can. And the Edwards Lake siphon being put in this year will cost taxpayers $350,000. It's frustrating for residents who are experiencing all of this to, at the same time, to see a large-scale development like the Havies proceed with subdivision approval right in their own backyard. Do you feel that based on our water issues in Sechelt, that we can proceed as planned with this development that is proposing 212 dwelling units with 512 or 522 bathrooms? How can this be explained to the community that in 2022 we'll spend at least a quarter of our year in stage 3 and stage 4 water restrictions? All right, so I'll pull out the first one, and it is Ms. Darnelda Seegers.
All right, so this question is about water supply and development, and is nuanced. The District of Sechelt does not approve water connections. That is the jurisdiction of the SCRD. The District of Sechelt would need to determine how or if we can restrict only certain development. What about workforce housing or local or seniors affordable housing? The SCRD indicated there's no specific authority available to local governments through legislation for a blanket moratorium on development approvals. However, this could be pursued at the SCRD through an update to Bylaw 422, Water Rates and Regulations, to look at a combination of blanket restrictions on certain allowable uses, such as establishing a maximum allowable volume per residential property, and or placing terms and conditions on other uses, such as cannabis production. Limiting volume per residential property requires that all residences be metered, which is coming. We could also consider a change to the SCRD subdivision services standards. Given the climate change impacts we're experiencing, these items should be brought forward at the SCRD at the beginning of the next term for implementation as soon as possible.
Thank you, Darnelda. Mr. Darren Inkster, please.
Oh, it goes along with you.
We're going to go from the right all the way down, and then we'll jump over here to Donna when we hit the front row.
Yeah, thank you. It has been pointed out that it's a regional district, control over our water, but we've had a number of years at that table from 2 council members from this council that could have talked about changes through those 4 years. If you've asked them and they've presented that they've done a lot of work on the water issue with the wells, and there's been a lot of, in a sense, bragging from the members restanding for council to say that they've done a lot of work in that area. But maybe they need to look at their legislation and how they approve developments in Sechelt, such as this. At the Sechelt level, we need to look at permitting and the stages of this development. It is true that we're at a very difficult time in our history. We're running out of water as it stands now, and we need to look at new developments as to providing their own cisterns, their own water-saving devices, because this development has already been approved, so we need to now work on what we're going to do through the permitting stages, water savings devices, cisterns, phasing in, permitting, and perhaps limiting the size of the development. It's really important that we consider all these devices because we're running out of water. We also need to get them to contribute.
Thank you, Darren.
To a reservoir. Thank you.
Anna. Yeah. Anna J. Chen.
Water supply has been a challenge on the Sunshine Coast for many years. So today we are going to address the water shortage problem. If we elected, I'm going to work with the council and the mayor, so to find some solution for the local residents. So I think first of all I need to think about like 5 governments should work together, like federal, provincial, SCRD, and region district, local government. And then I think so some program already been done, like church load well field and SCRD water strategy and land use well field expansion, and also some great creek and upgrade. I explore load for the reservoir. So that will be another option, deeper, and maybe build another reservoir for our local government. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Miss Jerry Patterson, please.
Hi, I think all of us are well aware that the Sechelt water system is in a crisis. The SCRD water system is in a crisis. We know that. So as of today, if you're asking, do we have water for a subdivision or a development? My answer would be no, we don't. Might we have water in the future? Yes. But do we have the water today? The answer is no.
Thank you, Jerry. Thomas Bramble.
I just want to say thanks everybody for coming out this evening. It's round 4, I think, so appreciate that. So what I understand about the Havies development is they met all of the zoning criteria. It's been approved. I really didn't want to dwell on that, but more focus on the issues that we face and how we can move forward on those. We obviously have capacity issues. I think any subsequent approvals need to be very cognizant of whether we do have capacity to service them before they are approved going forwards. And then in parallel, we need to manage the fact that we are in an emergency state right now. I am hearing that there are some affordable solutions out there that can be worked on. We need to get creative. We can't move at traditionally government speed on this. We need to, it needs to move at the speed of a competitive business. I think we need to get creative.
Thank you, Thomas. Miss Brenda Moore, or Brenda Rowe, sorry.
Whoa, way to start rumors.
Yeah, that was weird.
Sorry, Chris. Sorry, June, wherever you are. Why does it always happen to me? Okay. This question is really about water and development. It's hard to say limit development in one sentence and we need housing in the next. The District of Sechelt, as we've already said, does not have legislative authority to limit development based on water. Any possibility of that sits with the regional district. The SCRD Infrastructure Services Committee had a report presented to them May 16, 2019 titled Managing Growth to Address Water Supply Deficit that outlines barriers and potential options on just that subject. I invite you all to check it out, it's public. What we continue to look at in Sechelt are initiatives such as working with the province to develop legislation on and building guidelines for use with gray water and flushing toilets, for instance. Water meters are coming early in the new year, which in doubt will find further savings. Development does not happen overnight. We need workforce housing, seniors housing, and family housing. This has to work in tandem with infrastructure needs.
Thank you, Miss Brenda Rowe.
Thank you.
Mr. Alton Toth.
Thank you, Keith. If you believe some of the comments online, these homes are going to sit empty most of the time anyways. I don't personally believe that. I do know of local people who are interested in buying homes up there. However, at this time, the District of Sechelt has no method by which we can regulate the number of bathrooms built in a home or the number of water-consuming fixtures installed. The BC Climate Action Toolkit, a public document from the province, makes reference to water conservation measures, as well as makes suggestions for things like the Merton rule around energy generation or requiring cisterns under driveways. These are new concepts that could come through an OCP update and incentivizing our builders. I do want to say that I did vote against the form and character development permit for this particular project. I would have much rather seen more compact townhomes up there with additional green space around the project. Less water consumption inside, green space for people to gather and play outside. But the developer chose to go with what the zoning and OCP allowed for, rather than make any attempts to innovate.
Thank you, Alton. Ms. Cheryl Chang.
Thank you. Without repeating what others have said, I just want to emphasize that moving forward, we need to look at development practices that's relevant to our current water supply situation. We need to get creative and move fast and regulate the size of developments that's coming through and how it's relevant to the water supply at the regional level, and put pressure on at the regional level to support us at the municipal level.
Thank you, Cheryl. I will move down now to Donna. The people in the back might have a tough time seeing you. I just wanted to point that out.
development in our community right now. Frankly, I'm on the mindset that we need to curb all development for the time being, considering our water crisis. But looking forward, we need a strong commitment to a sustainable development strategy in our OCP plan. The way we build, infill strategies, and target densities to provide a greater diversity of housing and increasing housing affordability, systems to reduce consumption of water, etc. I also feel there can be a passiveness to a climate action plan and emergencies that can creep into municipalities' planning. And it sometimes comes from a sense that our economy is more important. Climate change is a priority. Climate action should come first. If we don't do this, the economy will crumble. Growth is not a question for Sechelt. It is inevitable because of its beauty and its location. We can't try to stop growth, as we will face unintended consequences, including unaffordable housing, struggling small businesses, inefficient infrastructure, and more. I feel the question for us is not whether, but how and where the growth occurs. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I've been working all week on this. Miss Mickey Agropoulos. Close? Oh.
I agree. I see why so many people are so upset. I went on their site to find out what was going on, what they were doing, and to see if it was a good fit for all of us. Well, I didn't get anywhere. I couldn't find any information. They wouldn't talk and they wouldn't say anything. So I managed affordable housing. I didn't develop housing. What I can say as a candidate is if I'm elected, I will push for maximum transparency and engagement with community decisions that will be made in the sunlight, not behind closed doors. There is transparency from the applicant and from the district. There's no transparency, sorry. This is a red flag. Today we received more information from the district. This development is clearly being marketed for investors rather than locals. I'm surprised that the city is surprised that the developer would not try to maximize density. I'm also surprised to find out today that the accessory dwellings are not included in the density calculations. Whether or not this project can proceed as planned, this is a legal regulatory issue, which I'm not qualified.
Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Adam Shepard.
Hi. The Havies development is happening at a terrible time, and I think it has such an impact on the community because it's of its sheer size and obviously the time of when it's happening. So, you know, taking a look at the question submitted, can we proceed as planned with the development? And I guess I'd flip it back to the Davis Bay Association and say, what grounds, if you're looking solely at water, can you stop the development? And obviously the water controls lie with the region. So I would look forward, when we do update the OCP, I would look for tests that we can incorporate into our OCP so that at the municipal level, we can sort of control these kind of developments based on their size and water scarcity. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Mr. John Henderson.
I'm going to stand up. Good evening, everyone. I think we can and must proceed with both Havies and with finding new water. We need more sources of water. We're at stage 4 now, as we all know, and we're about to run out, and that's unacceptable. I have plans that will provide us with some new sources of water, and that's going to be my first priority as your mayor. Secondly, we cannot stop, and we should not stop development. We need workforce housing, we need seniors housing, we need a whole array of housing. I'll be encouraging everyone who builds these types of projects to do so in Sechelt. Turning to Havies Road, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed with the marketing on and off coast. It's disgraceful. And by the concept of multiple huge homes, which I don't find to be at all attractive. I do like the sewer pipe extension. Eventually that will benefit Davis Bay and Selma Park. But for now, We must work for the neighborhood and the other infrastructure to fit with our lifestyle here. If elected, I'm confident
Thank
that
you,
we
John.
and the owner can do better than
Thank
what
you,
has
John.
been proposed.
Thank you, John. Mr. Warren Allen.
In my opinion, no, it can't be explained, because acknowledging the limitations of our water and sewer and other infrastructure, how can anyone justify this with a straight face? This council shouldn't have allowed this proposal, and probably a few of the other development applications mentioned in this question, to proceed without at least some additional conditions, as in this case, for example, by not just paying for the sewer lines, but also any major upgrading to the services that we're going to need to meet the demand for this new development. Until we address these issues, I've heard that the total demands of all of these developments are apparently going to exceed our present water and sewer capacities. We need to seriously review our approval processes so that we don't get ourselves into the same predicaments we're finding ourselves getting into every day, every application that comes forward. To me, it's simple. Community comes first, and we have to learn, and maybe the SCRD has to learn that too, that sometimes it's okay to say no.
Thank you, Warren. Miss Diane McLaughlin, please.
I said no to this as well, and I'm basically saying that we don't have enough water for current residents, obviously, so we can't entertain a hotel-like rental management development, especially since it would require much more water and sewage than regular homes. It does not fit into the context of this community in terms of density or lot size. It is actually not actually low density and should have required a large amenity contribution. The OCP says on page 40 that low density residential with sewers are 900 meters squared. And in the case of R1 zoning, the planning department uses 500 meters squared to allow this to be taken out of context from a small lot development where basement suites and carriage houses are not allowed. We need green design. The OCP says that the Havies type of development is not supported by the OCP, which calls for conservation design, pages 19, 20, 23, and 40. Does the Havies look like cluster housing that is respecting nature? It is not of any form of sustainable development. It is the opposite. Given the density, the Havies should have had a 40% park dedication as amenity contribution, since it is a significant location.
Thank you, Diane. Mr. Al Holt.
In answer to the question was, should this development proceed? The short answer is no, and the long answer is no. There are still hoops to be jumped through for this development. MOTI has to approve access. Everyone in front of you today will tell you what you want to hear to get elected to suit their particular agenda. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not involved in real estate or in development. I'm a concerned taxpayer that has a goal to bring you water, then deal with other issues, such as development, the highway, taxes, and sustainability for our beautiful community. In the past 12 years of Sechelt councils, we have paid over $17 million for a dependable water supply that has yet to appear. I promise to bring you water for gardens, landscaping, and your everyday needs. And usually I take and talk a lot longer.
Thank you, Al. Mr. Chris Moore.
Contrary to Al, I am in real estate, and I have been in real estate for 40 years at Whistler and down here. I think my last community association meeting was here when we built the West in 2004. The Havies development is one question, whether I like it or not. I don't like it, but I support it only because it conforms to the zoning and the OCP. And I think there was a huge opportunity missed when these guys came forward with the sewer system, and we could have been looking at something way more creative on that 25 acres. For me, when I look at the question on the 522 bathrooms, are people concerned about that? What if this was an affordable housing complex in the same location, comprised of 200 or 300 apartments or something like that? Would we be stopping those in terms of affordable housing, which is in dire need on the Sunshine Coast for all the service workers, the hospital workers, the hospitality, and the construction industry? My question is, why are we in stage 3 and why are we in stage 4? I'm running on water. We should get the water fixed. We have the source. We just need to have the political will. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Last one to answer the question is Mr. Tim Horner.
Thank you. So the Hayvies development does conform to and meet all the zoning bylaws. So right now there are no grounds for legally denying them their development permit. So this isn't going to be built overnight. So phase 1, consisting of the 24 3-bedroom homes, is expected to be completed at the end of 2024, making 2025 the first summer experienced by just the first 24 homes of the development. Church Road will have been operational for over 2 years at that time. Langdale Well is estimated to be online as well by that time. And water meters will have been installed, and volumetric pricing, which I'm a strong believer of, should be enforced. This will significantly reduce our water consumption, while the 2 wells will significantly add to our supply. Our climate is changing, not just here but globally. We are currently in a severe drought, along with many places in the Northern Hemisphere. We need to move fast to ensure these wells and water meters are online, and we need to fast track another reservoir to secure our long-term water supplies to ensure that we have drinking water and remove or significantly reduce the likelihood of stage 4 in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Miss Brenda Rowe has asked to rebut this question. If you could hand the mic to her, please. Oh, perfect. So you will have 30 seconds to rebut.
To candidate Inkster, let's not kid ourselves that this water problem occurred in the last 4 years. There's plenty of people sitting up here that aren't current incumbents but have served time on council since this has been addressed. What wasn't planned for becomes a crisis. That's where we are today. 4 years ago, council of the day couldn't decide drawdown Chapman versus a reservoir. 4 years later, 1 well that would be online, you know the rest.
Thank you, Brenda. So that concludes the first question of the evening. I just want to tell the candidates that live streaming, currently we have over 75 people online watching you tonight. So we will move on now to question 2, which is on the official community plan. A big part of the mayor and council's role this term will be updating the District of Sechelt's official community plan, or the OCP as it's affectionately called, last completed in 2010. This 225-page document is what guides policy regarding land use within the District of Sechelt and within specific neighborhoods. It touches on issues such as sustainable land use, conservation design, parks and trails, preservation of open space, social well-being, as well as definitions of development permit areas, among other things. Have you read the entire OCP? And what are the values or priorities that you would like to see embedded in the next official community plan of the Sunshine Coast? I'll do it this way. Oh, there you go. That's about as random as it gets. Miss Diane McLaughlin, you'll start first. The corded mic, yep, perfect. And then we'll move to Al Holt. Thank you.
I'm actually an urban planner by profession, so I love these types of questions. The values stand and are based on the vision plan. However, we need an OCP to better address climate change, which has hit us hard and fast. We need to relocate some sections of highway and create buffers for environmental purposes and more appropriate development permit areas. The OCP is not just about land use. I would institute strength-based community development and be ready to anticipate future needs. This is where proper asset management ties in with land use planning, and this approach is long overdue. We need to incorporate more modern green building infrastructure objectives. Otherwise, the OCP does not need an overhaul, as mentioned by in a pro-development direction as touted by the current council. The OCP is meant to restrain inappropriate development, not encourage it. We need to follow the existing OCP, which isn't being respected. Page 4 of the OCP says any zoning amendments must be consistent with the OCP. I am not convinced that new developments are in conformance. I have read the OCP more than once, but I refer to it because it is a big document and I can't rely on memorizing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Al, please.
Yes, I've attempted to understand the 225 pages of the OCP, and apparently some people sitting up here today didn't understand it any better than I did by all the emails I got today. The OCP as a document is just a suggestion for development of particular sites chosen by a developer. This development over here on Havies does not fit the actual purpose of the OCP for this particular site, from what I read. When elected by you, I will not dictate my policy to you, but listen to your community association input. I would like to encourage more commercial activity in Sechelt. And with that, I'll hand it to Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Al. Chris.
Thanks. My question was, is there going to be a test on this if I say yes? OCP's a big document. I have read it probably back and forth many times during my work career. I've had several rezoning applications, several amendments to the OCP, which requires a vote of 5 people on council. When we did the West here, that was one of them. It was quite an onerous process. We did 3 public hearings, for those that might remember or might not. The priorities are, it's a guiding document. It's not to be meant rigid. It's supposed to give us a sense of where we want to see certain things, i.e. Commercial development around the airport, affordable living downtown where people can catch buses and things like that. But for me, the biggest component that's missing out of the OCP is our neighbors. The SIB, Sechelt Indian Band, is not inclusive in our OCP. And we have failed for many, many years that in our lack of collaboration on both sides to come together to decide what kind of community we want, what direction we want to go. So you just got to drive down the highway right now and everybody asks what's happening and nobody knows.
Thank you, Chris. Tim.
You got it? There we go. So in my past professions, I've read and reviewed relevant sections of many OCPs throughout different municipalities in the Lower Mainland. So I'm quite familiar with what they are and how they work. I've read a significant amount of our OCP thoroughly and skimmed other parts. I agree that the current OCP does need to be reviewed and updated. I feel the current OCP is too limiting in some aspects. I would like to see more density, particularly in the downtown core, with laneways and perhaps low to mid-rise walk-ups, which would go a long way toward helping with our housing crisis. I would like to see more involvement and input from our 6 community associations. It is a community plan, after all. I feel it really needs to focus on the imminent climate change that is happening and present guidelines to help mitigate and adapt to climate change. Lastly, let's lay out better transportation options with more multi-use paths and public transit infrastructure to help connect our communities. Thank you.
Yes, I've read the OCP a number of times. It's a comprehensive and aspirational document. We want it all. However, having it all is very costly. It means higher costs for infrastructure and higher taxes. When we review the OCP, while we should keep the aspirational aspect, we should also view the updates through a lens of cost and climate change impacts. We need to look at how we, a small community with the majority of the tax burden resting on the shoulders of residential owners, can actually implement the goals in a cost-effective way. We need to prioritize. This last term, we implemented an asset management plan to help us with that prioritization. We also need to continue to seek out provincial and federal grants to help stretch our locally collected tax dollars. This past term, we sought out and received over $14 million worth of grants to help us implement OCP goals, like upgraded parks, bike and walking trails, social well-being, and many more. And if re-elected, I will continue to work with staff to seek out grants to continue addressing our aspirational OCP goals.
Thank you. The OCP was worked on by myself and a number of other council members a number of years ago based on a vision plan that had hundreds of people involved in the vision plan. So those that want to change it, remember the numbers of community members and the effort put in by our community to put in an OCP that safeguarded the interests and the sustainability of our community. What I would like to see us improve going forward with the OCP, if in fact there are proposed changes, is that we use community input more often. We listen to communities and access communities and send council members to communities like Davis Bay, Wilson Creek, Selma Park, in order to talk to them about developments before we change the developments and or add more units to a development to a neighborhood that doesn't want to see that development. It's called community engagement. We need to get back to that. We have a fiduciary responsibility to negotiate on behalf of our community. If elected, the buck stops here. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Anna.
Yes. I have read many times about OCP, and when I was, a member of APC members, but this isn't. I think every 2 years we need to change it, like a community engagement initiative, and also 1 year need to reversed every year, and the current change should happen. So, and in my understanding, the new OCP should be directly for the future growth and change in the district of Sechelt and guided by the community versions. And also, I should hold the open house and also workshop over like a half citizens. People share their ideas and get the version for the future our community plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Jerry.
The need for a new OCP has been discussed numerous times in the last 3-4 weeks by numerous groups, including the housing groups, the transportation groups, climate groups. And I agree, we need a new OCP that reflects the experiences and the lives of those living here for what we need now and what we need for the future. This would be done in a collaborative manner, meeting with groups, traveling throughout the community, looking, watching, listening, and understanding where our community is and where we want our community to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thomas.
Thank you. The OCP is long. It's 225 pages long, as an unknown number of people here have already mentioned. I have read it. It clearly does need modernizing, although I do believe that the fundamentals are still there. Affordable housing, environment change, resilience, capacity management. These things all are still areas of focus, but I think the weighting and prioritization perhaps needs to change. Also, the way people live and the people that are coming to Sechelt are impacting the things that it needs. So absolutely it needs updating. Coming back to the fact that it is so long, it's a plan, and in my experience, a plan should be deliverable and achievable, and this feels like it is just a list of utopian aspirations. I would like to see an OCP that is actually digestible, that people understand and can get behind, and that we can come up with a roadmap to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Brenda.
Thank you. Yes, I have read the OCP. I read it in 2018 before I made the decision to run for council. Continues to be an often used reference document while being on council. Sits in a yellow binder on my desk. I see the true value of the document being the fact that it really is the community's document. At the end of the day, it should reflect what the community wants to see for the next 10 years. It should also reflect what the community needs as defined by the impacts of climate change, for instance. What I think needs to be embedded in the next version would be a broader look at how climate change will impact our vision of what this community look like. Our current DPA is sufficient. How do we incorporate factors like sea rise? Another piece that needs to be included is around social issues such as homelessness. Where do we want future services such as supportive housing to go? We can't pretend that these services won't be needed, so we need to plan for it.
Thank you, Brenda. Alton.
Thank you, Keith. I have read the entire OCP, but I admit that I don't have it committed to memory. One of the things that we know needs improvement is that currently our density talks about units per hectare, which rewards fewer, larger, more expensive units rather than a floor space ratio, which would reward smaller, more sustainable units. However, our updated OCP also needs to include additional gentle density outside of the downtown. Carriage houses, tiny homes, laneway housing, generally smaller, more creative forms of secondary units. Speaking personally, I'm just under a half acre where I am, and I can't build a second dwelling of any size. Everyone on my street is in the exact same situation, and it's leading to people in our community living illegally in RVs, in driveways, or up our Forest Service roads. We have to be willing to allow for some growth in our neighborhoods It doesn't mean high-rises on every street.
Excellent. Thank you, Walton. Cheryl.
Thank you. I think that the OCP does need to be updated. To change a 200-page document completely is undeliverable. And we need to be realistic in what we can achieve in such a short time during an urgent stage of our community right now. Aside from repeating what others have said, we need to focus on engaging the community and hear from you as to what you want to see moving forward as we see our community change.
Thank you, Cheryl. Ms. Donna.
Yes, I have read it, and I certainly need to read it again and again, because it's a lot to retain. But I think the OCP is a very comprehensive document and has a lot of great values in it that addressed environmental, social, and economic challenges and opportunities. But as everyone has said, it does need to be updated. I'd like to see the sustainable land use area in the OCP be updated and integrated into a strategy to provide a framework to inform planning and policy work. The goal of this strategy would be to help Sechelt in preparing for many of the challenges that we will face in the 21st century, such as water demands that may outstrip local supply, increased pressure on foreign food supplies and growing support for healthy local food, climate change, and associated impacts. The words are there, but they have to be more than just words on paper. The old adage states, action speaks louder than words. People believe what you do, or people do what you do, not what you say. So I'd like to see a very comprehensive, collaborative process going forward to get the community involved, because this is a very, very informed community, and they have a lot to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Mickey.
No, I haven't read it all. It's 225 pages. But I do know the neighborhood vision is a key part of every OCP. And I know that the issue that topped the list of the 2012 OCP for the community was traffic, right there on page 111. The document is supposed to guide us for 20 years. We are just halfway. So I know that council has helped improve the traffic situation in the community, and that I can't make it worse. What would I like to see in the future? Housing for seniors, high-density rental buildings for low-income residents, commercial and industrial development, the right ones, and an updated OCP. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. Adam.
I'm with Mickey on this. I have not read the entire document. I tend to focus on the areas of East Porpoise Bay because of the OCP is really based on neighborhoods. So I tend to deal with it when we have a conflict or rezoning in our neighborhood. But I have taken place in the integrated sustainability process, which took place in 2018 and 19. Where we were focused, bringing some 20, 25 people from across the community to focus on sustainable principles. And what I found is the bedrock principles of our existing OCP are what people want. People want a small, nice community that we have, but it does have to be shaped going forward. It does have to be updated. The province mandates that it's got to be updated every 10 years. So we have to shape it going forward with everyone's input to focus more on climate change, affordable housing, and water. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. John.
Hi again. I'm certainly in favor of doing an update of the OCP. You know, lots have changed in the last 15 years, and things are changing faster and faster. So I think we need to address and contemplate for many decades to come what is going to be possible and what is our vision for Sechelt. Personally, I see increased density in selected areas as a fundamental component of creating a sustainable Sechelt. Having said that, I don't see that as likely in Selma Park and parts of Davis Bay, primarily because of the topography and the infrastructure that makes it less appealing and probably less viable for things like walkability, transit and the like. The other piece that hasn't come up yet, but I think when in doing this, we have to reach out to the young people because we're really doing this for them. And so part of any update, and my goal would be to attract the youngest people that we can get to talk about what they feel is important for them when they get older, including the young people that have chosen to leave. Let's invite them back to be part of this process so we can get them back. Thank you.
And Warren.
Yes, I've read it, and having been on council in 2010 when it was drafted, I know the agreement well, and was reviewing it again the past couple of weeks, even before we were asked to do so this evening. The values and priorities I would like to see should include more community values and not so much about development. Did I mention development? I'd like to see more involvement with residents, for example, by including more detailed neighborhood plans like we used to have in our OCPs prior to 2010. I'd like to see stronger language, perhaps requiring that new developments shall be required than may be required. With preliminary reports coming to council before first reading so that we know and they know whether or not an opportunity is worth pursuing. I've got about a half a dozen additional comments at the back of the room in my brochure that I've left here that go on. So rather than dwell on page number, I welcome you to take one home with you when you leave. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Warren. That concludes the second question of the evening. That's the second out of 5. If you're just joining us on the live stream, there's 5 questions this evening. We've just finished 2 of them. And welcome, almost 100 people online now. So we'll move on to question 3, and that is regarding community engagement. There's been a lot of feedback from community members and community associations that they feel decisions are being rushed without adequate information being provided to the public, and it comes across as a lack of transparency. For example, with the new zoning bylaw renewal, it moved through council in July and its 3rd reading in September. Just with our community association, the Havies development happened without any consultation or referral from district staff until mid-August when it was too late, which means community input was never considered. Community members present a number of issues and often never hear a response. In your opinion, what is the role of community engagement in the work of local government? What do you see as the role of a community association? How do you plan to engage with the community if you are elected? Okay, random. Oh, I took out 2, of course. We'll start with Mr. Adam Shepherd.
Community engagement, I'm the only one up here who's on a community association. So I've got a pretty keen sense of when our voices are not being heard and taking part in the processes. I agree in a couple of the last, the zoning bylaw 580 update, it was pushed through fairly quickly. I will say from my point of view, we were trying to get our residents interested in the principles, but it's a pretty dense piece of legislation, if you will, to get people interested in. So I think one of the things I'd like to do in terms of keeping engaged, if I am elected in council, is to continue on with SCAF, which is the united body of all of our community associations, and keep attending their meetings so I keep hearing about the issues coming up. Thank you.
We'll move on to John.
Thanks. You know, I'm a big fan of community associations. I'm not on one now, but I have been. I think the importance of the community associations that are actively engaged with their members provides a consensus view that's very helpful to council. It's also important that council keep the community association very well informed so that you can disseminate the views of council out to the members. I agree with the premise that the zoning bylaw was rushed. I've heard that it was delayed in part because of COVID, and while I accept that, the fact is it was delayed, and rushing to get it done I fear is just going to make it subject to challenge in the coming months. Regarding the Havies project, I understand from a procedural perspective why the district didn't have to engage. Having said that, I think it was even more important and incumbent on the developer to have done a much better job of bringing forward his plans well before we got to this stage. Finally, I've heard many complaints about the poor responsiveness from the district and from some of our elected officials.
Thank you, John.
And we'll do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Warren.
As a past member of the executive of the Davis Bay, Wilson Creek, Selma Park Community Association, I would like you to know that there are other members up here this evening who have also shared in their community associations' well-being and community involvement. Basically, to me, it's essential. My view of council is that we should reflect the wishes and expectations of our residents and visions of our communities. As community associations represent their community, I would like to see council reinstate the practice of having each council member, perhaps on an annual rotating basis, so that we get to know our communities better, be assigned to attend your community association meetings, like we used to do. We would then report back to council so that we would be apprising council and keeping ourselves in touch with what's actually going on instead of just bumping into people now and then. My thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Diane.
To me, community is the basis of everything done on council. On council, we serve the people. Buildings, roads, and other infrastructure provide what residents need. Here we seem to have the tail wagging the dog. Council should not come off as though they have dominion over neighborhood associations with closed meetings and a very limited presence on Zoom. Who is running Sechelt Council? I will honor past community decisions and neighborhood plans and community rights that are in the OCP. I will review the original neighborhood plans and update them for emergency preparedness and enrich the urban nature-based design to create a more sustainable community. I'll sponsor regular neighborhood community get-togethers with politicians, administration, Sechelt First Nation, young leaders, etc. I'll implement grassroots community group projects centered around community halls and schools to fight climate change and instill confidence. Together, we are stronger. Caring communities and our natural environment are the essence of this place. They need to be protected from exploitation and enhanced with nature-based design to provide resiliency. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Al.
I think community engagement is the #1 issue here. On request, I would have monthly meetings in the community to discuss relative local issues. I see community associations as a sounding board to making decisions. I honestly don't think that development fits in this area. I don't think it fits in any area up here, to be honest with you. And I would work really hard to see if I could get no more in-camera meetings regarding this community.
Thank you, Al. Chris.
Yeah, for me, the question on this is the role of community engagement. So I would look at that several ways. Community engagement, one of the groups that I enjoyed working with, or platforms, were the advisory committees that we established in the municipality. Advisory APC, Advisory Airport, there was different groups that were out there that provided a lot of gray matter that were quite professional and helped the advisory committee to engage with council later and giving them information or direction. And I'm proposing that right now on the affordable housing and the water issue. The associations all have a place in time. I've worked with most of them at one point. When we did Brick Reciters in West Sechelt, we worked with the West Sechelt Community Association. They were excellent. We've referred our request to them and they responded quickly. Downtown Business Association, when we did Midtown beside the car wash, they responded quickly. The big thing with the associations, if they're going to get engaged, they have to respond in a timely fashion. Just because they get a referral, they can't sit on it for weeks or months, delaying the process. But to engage them is essential.
Thank you, Chris. Tim.
So I think the question kind of... Test. Hello? Perfect. So I think the question got a little off track there. Let's answer the question. Local government needs to engage with community. They need to feel the pulse and understand what the community needs are. There are 6 distinct community neighborhoods in Sechelt. The residents and geography in each neighborhood are unique, and the 6 community associations should know what their concerns are and speak for the residents that live in their area. I would like to see councillors attend at the very least each association's annual general meeting to ensure that the unique requirements and needs of each neighborhood are being communicated to council so that decisions can be made with the community's best interest in mind. Also know councillors can always be reached through email and phone, and most are happy to discuss your concerns.
Thank you, Tim. Moving on to Darnelda.
So community associations are the voice of their residents to local government. They have more boots on the ground knowledge that can help inform decisions. I think all the community associations in Sechelt would benefit from having more members. There are still many residents who have no idea community associations even exist. Higher membership also gives broader input from diverse voices in your area when you engage with us on issues. Others up here have said that the Homey development is actually approved. That's incorrect. They have been given a development permit with conditions. Transportation, geological, hydrological. There's lots of work for them to do. Get that sewer line in before they can actually move forward to even consider a subdivision and servicing bylaw. So as mayor this past term, I've always accepted out invitations to attend community association meetings and will continue to do so. We implemented regular meetings with SCAF, the Sechelt Community Association Forum, as Adam referred to, and most of council has attended the meetings. They've been held as frequently as every couple of months. This forum would continue in the new term as it's beneficial to both sides and provides an opportunity for dialogue between us on a regular basis.
Thank you, Darnelda. On to Darren.
Community association meetings with community is incredibly important. Needs to be changed every 6 months because it's a 4-year term, so every council member can go. We need to look at community up, not council down communications, as this council has been accused of. These are community accusations. Referrals to the community associations need to be timely because community associations meet monthly. Once they receive the application and or the referral, they need time to get it out to the members and inform their members. We need to make sure we give community associations time. We need to look at community forums on special topics. We need to look at town hall meetings on issues. Generally, community members want to feel listened to, respected, and connected. We need to work together to have shared goals of a livable, safe, affordable community. Together, we can accomplish these goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Next up is Anna.
In my opinion, the role of the community engagement for me is to for the community taxpayer should be parted directly for the major community decisions, especially for the community involvement, and they should mail out shows to the community. So if elected, I think I'm going to accountable for my board and accountable from the council and accountable for my own conduct. And also the government transparency is so should show the residents, and also maybe is this is a communicated engagement for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Anna. On to Jerry.
Communication. How many of us are still waiting to get an answer to an email, an answer to a phone call? Is it days? Is it weeks? Is it months? Or I've been waiting a little bit over 3 years for a response on one item. So communication is the most important thing that we can have. And that means the government, the local government, the elected officials, the staff, communicating with the public, informing and educating. But most importantly, communication means that the people at your local municipal hall, be it staff, be it elected, they need to listen to you. That is communication. We need to listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Next on to Thomas.
So anyone that's already emailed me would know that my email address is yourvoice@tombramble.com. And I chose that because I see myself as really a conduit for everybody in the community, and not somebody who's necessarily here to make decisions, but to facilitate that process. And that's something that I have demonstrated success at in my professional capacity. Good decisions should never be a surprise. They should be something that everybody is behind, and it just makes sense to the community. And that's my key strength here, that I can help drive communities to making logical decisions that make sense, that everybody's involved in and gets behind. Whether that's Q&A sessions, forums, feedback, review sessions, whatever gets us to a point that everybody understands and can support. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Next up is Brenda.
Thank you. So we've heard from the community that they want better, increased level of engagement. I think that comes in two forms. One is how we communicate out big projects that we want feedback on, like our budget, or major projects like the zoning bylaw. I think there are some out-of-the-box thinking ideas that we've heard actually from the community ourselves, such as using our banner spaces to advertise those big projects. Community associations also provide significant route to communicate better. While SCAF is helpful in bringing us together as a group, I do think there's a place for having council member liaisons to the actual community associations as well. I also think that the Have Your Say Day model that we did before COVID was an excellent opportunity for engagement. And we were reminded of that format somewhat a couple of weeks ago when Alton and I hosted the meet and greet for the candidates. A few of us candidates were talking about how great it would be to do that with the new council again. As for the role of community associations, while I do agree that a main part is to communicate concerns and request to council, I also think they should take a proactive role in their community. I think there's a role for them around emergency planning, for instance. I also love to see them get involved in projects.
All right, and next is Alton.
Thank you, Keith. I was on the executive of the Downtown Business Association, so I know that the community associations are the most effective method for us to engage with residents. I know that COVID threw a bit of a wrench into things over the last couple of years, but it's important that the community associations and the District of Sechelt do work closer together than admittedly we have been to ensure that the concerns are being heard as projects and ideas are brought forward. During the last term, we tried council conversations where council would chat with any members of the public that wanted to show up, and we very rarely had more than 2 or 3 people showing up. Thank you, Pam. So I don't know that that was an effective means of engagement, but I am willing to try it again. I'm actually more interested in hearing how the community wants to be engaged with by council. Is it mail-outs? Is it an open house in the mall? Is it a monthly council newsletter? I don't have the answer to that question yet, but if you want to come talk to me more about it, I'll be at the Village Restaurant tomorrow from 11 till noon. Come have a coffee with me.
Thank you, Alton. Cheryl.
Thanks, Alton. I think you hit a couple of my points here. As an active community contributor, I like my voice heard, and so do you. So I would like to open the doors of council and the district staff to make sure that your voices are heard and that your questions and feedbacks receive a response. And I look forward to engaging with all of you. And you can find me always at Nourish in Sechelt.
Thank you, Cheryl. Donna.
Community engagement increases the visibility and understanding of issues that empower our communities. I think the community associations are the keepers of their communities. They're strong advocates for their community, and they have a depth of knowledge of the issues. I would like to see a staff person designated to be the liaison and contact for the community associations so that they can bring concerns and that they have a voice to bring to council. I think advisory committees are a great idea. As Chris has said, they bring a lot of knowledge and experience to the table that we may not have, that council and the mayor may not have. The nonprofit organizations in this community are absolutely phenomenal. The knowledge they have, the depth they have, the commitment they have, I would like to see us work closely with them and have them around the table as well. I really believe in collaboration. It's the way I've always worked, and I want to be accessible and engaged with my community. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. And finally, Mickey.
Well, I'm going to get up now, too. Okay. Working for 19 years with the Ministry of Housing as a property manager was the best part of my life. I had to deal with various associations, with government agencies, churches, the police, and that's where I was listening. There's a difference between hearing and listening. Are we all listening or just hearing? Think about that. If I'm elected, I will ensure that the community considered by council and make communications more efficient and more constructive as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. Before we move on, we have 2 rebuttals. Actually, and Alton Toth was first, so Alton, you'll have 30 seconds to rebut.
2 things real quick. If an individual association asks one of us to attend, we do. I attended the East Porpoise Bay meeting just last month. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that the zoning update has been underway since 2014. So how long is it supposed to take?
Thank you, Alton. And Adam, you get 1 rebuttal, 30 seconds.
Just a quick rebuttal of Jerry's comment. I have to say of the existing council, Alton Toth never fails to appear when we ask that he appear in front of our association. And I'll also say we usually invite Mayor Seegers to our AGM or to our summer picnic. She always shows up. It's always some tough questioning that's going on, and she never fails to respond the next day to the concerns we raise. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. It was kind of refreshing. That's our third question for the evening. And I was a little stunned. We'll move on to question 4. I will remind everybody who's sitting in the audience here tonight, if you do have any questions you want to pose to these, we won't be opening up the mics tonight, but back as you came through the entrance, there's a table with a box. You can fill out on there a question, put your contact information and who you want that question to go to, and we'll make sure that we get them off to them this evening and they'll have the chance to respond to you. I felt like that was good timing. All right, so question 4 we're going to go into is taxes, and this one has been submitted through the Sechelt Community Association Forum. The Coast Reporter reported that Sechelt's municipal taxes payable for residential properties averaged an 8.3% increase over 2021 levels. The 3-year average for Sechelt's residential tax rate is 5.65%. in comparison to the residential property taxes in Vancouver, which averaged 2.84%. What will you do to ensure that taxes do not continue to climb for residential property owners? And how will you act on behalf of taxpayers to monitor the spending of the SCRD and the District of Sechelt? And first up will be Mickey, I get to read it, Argyropoulos. How'd I do?
You did good. Sechelt is fortunate to have a highly skilled group of hardworking people, professionals, to look after the day-to-day operations in our community. We need to support all efforts for them to be as efficient and effective as possible, addressing the top priorities of our community: water, housing, and transportation, while ensuring that taxpayers' money is not being wasted on frivolous things. Transparency is critical. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. On to Adam.
In terms of the budget and increases, I think 8% breaks down to 5.65% for the town's budget and 3% for capital reserves. So we have a budgeting process, And I think the next budget process that we'll be embarking on is for 2024, I believe. So in that process, what I think we have to do, making it available to the public, is to say, look, if the public wants it, is to do some financial modeling. So if you want to cap taxes at 5%, that's an easy model to portray, but it's important for everyone to see what's going to be cut back. What services do we lose? What people do we not hire? So I would like to handle it through our budgeting process. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. John.
Okay, so taxes are always a bit of a dilemma. We all want taxes to stay low, but we all want additional services. So finding that balance is key. I think there's two things I'd focus on. The first is that council's responsibility is to understand the financial reports, the financial situation of council. We were asked if we've all read the OCP. I wonder how many people have really read and understood the financials for the district. I'm a chartered accountant with 45 years experience, and I do know what financial statements look like and how they're put together. We must ensure and be able to show that we're delivering value for the tax dollars, and that comes from the understanding the financials. As a community, we need basics. We need drinking water, sewer services, firefighting, and roads, but we want more, and we need more for recreation, for active transportation, and for protection from sea level rise and the like. But most of these cost a lot, and we can only share the burden with 11,000 people. So I think the comparison with Vancouver is a little unfair because they have a much higher population, of course, and they have a higher density.
Thank you very much. On to Warren.
Good evening. Okay, so as much as I hate bringing up my being on council before, if you've done things in the past that worked, do it again. What we used to do is we used to set what we felt was an acceptable tax increase given the projects in front of us, maintenance infrastructure, whatever's we're facing. And then we would direct it back to staff, senior staff, and we would say, work it out amongst yourselves so that you all understand the implications of this wish lists that you guys, I'm certain, all have on your desk there. Just you're staring at it every day. And work it out so that we meet this expectation for the community that our taxes this year are going to be X percent, 5%. Because when you look at the SCRD's practice, what they do every year, it comes up, oh my good Lord, we have a 37% tax increase. Because if we give everybody what we're looking for here, we can't afford this. So at the end of the day, they think you're a good guy because you come back with an 11% tax increase. Hello? So, and I would like to see us get back to that practice of establishing what we think is a fair tax increase given the issues we face and the issues we have to cost out for the new year. I'd request the District of Sechelt and the SCRD adopt similar budgeting practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. On to Diane.
Everything in terms of taxation and spending has to be reviewed. We cannot just keep adding more and more without redirecting some of the funds. Trade-offs will have to be made to work within our financial limits. I would take an integrated approach and entertain the idea of one local Southern Sunshine Coast government to cut back on administration operating costs. Their 22% goes to administration, and then another 9% goes to planning. I would at least have most admin and ops people work remotely in collaboration with the RD. COVID and my work at the City of Calgary shows it can work. It can eliminate redundancies and help share costs and projects, etc. I will manage water, sewers, and roads by working with the neighborhood associations and limit borrowing and the depletion of reserves. 9% of our budget goes to reserves, 3% to service debt every year, as they were taken up by a financial disaster known as a sewage treatment plant. Last but not least, I would seriously partner with Sechelt First Nations in terms of planning, servicing, and opportunities to integrate our lives together. Reconciliation means walking this journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Al.
Well, I, for one, have no idea where the money goes. And I want to tell you people, we need some levity. The toughest 3 years of my life were grade 5, okay? I will freeze property taxes until a forensic audit indicates where the money is being spent by both the SCRD, who we pay, and Sechelt, who we pay out from. I will encourage commercial growth to complement the residential tax base. That's what we need more than anything for alleviating your taxes. And I plan to sit at the SCRD table as a representative of the taxpayers of Sechelt. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Chris?
So I guess it's really a question of what do we want from our government and what are we prepared to pay for the government. There's a lot of services out there that we can all talk about the redundancy, possibly higher levels of efficiency in all different aspects and however government touches your life. And that's a big book to write. But my big one, I guess, on the residential tax base is the lack of commercial tax base in this district. As what I've spoken about is we're about 15%. The provincial average is much higher than that, 25 to 30%. We need to build our commercial tax base. That will create some relief for the residential taxpayers. How we spend the money is a different conversation. But this ties into the other questions about development. When we look at the airport lands and the possibility to develop these lands, that is development. And if we want jobs, we want accommodation for the younger people that are going to be working in these jobs, we need to get on that. So there's a big opportunity to build our commercial tax base, and that would balance the scales out a bit for the community.
Thank you, Chris. Tim?
Thanks, Keith. So, 75 seconds, go. Admittedly, I did not study financial economics in school, but comparing a small, somewhat rural community of approximately 11,000 residents to a metropolitan city of more than 650,000 residents with a huge commercial and industrial tax base is, in my opinion, not a very fair comparison. So for a community to grow and develop and build infrastructure requires significant amounts of money, and that comes from taxes. Sechelt does not have a huge commercial or industrial tax base, so residential properties must make up the bulk of the revenue to grow and maintain this community. One of my pillars is to attract more commercial businesses and industry. If we can significantly grow that tax base, perhaps we can offset our residential base. Again, most are not accountants or financial economists, so we would be leaning heavily on city staff to guide us in decisions regarding taxes and budget. Also, keep in mind, with more development comes more tax dollars. The Havies development should add over $500,000 to our tax base. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. On to Darnelda.
All right, so 4 things. 1, shift from residential to business and industry tax bases. 2, larger projects moving forward in Sechelt are an airport master plan to develop the industrial lands there, and a downtown area plan as redevelopment is imminent. There are other smaller industrial projects moving forward as well. These will start to nudge the dial away from residential taxes. We have a few loans getting paid off over the next few years, so we need to look at how to reallocate those funds. 2, continue to secure grants to help pay for our deteriorating infrastructure. We did a great job this past term in stretching our local tax dollars through being awarded over $14 million worth of grants. 3, accelerate asset management planning. When the state of our infrastructure is fully known, we can budget for and address items in priority order and do more long-term planning. 4, inspect all proposed spending items during budget deliberations. Every request from the community or staff at budget time comes at a cost, and it is difficult to balance the requests with the costs. A 1% tax increase only provides around $90,000, so it is our job to manage expectations. Thanks.
Thank you, Darnelda. On to Darren.
Remember when I started on council, the 1% tax increase was about $45,000, which shows that I've been on council a long while, since '99, and 16 years previous to this, done many budgets. A number of people in this area have seen a 20 to 25% increase in their taxes. They're concerned about that in difficult times. When I was mayor, we had a 0, a 1.5, and a 2% tax increase. We had a lot of money in the bank, and the money in the bank grew over my term. Didn't go down, even though we kept taxes low. We had a list of things, of needs, not wishes. People in the community, some ran on platforms of spending money and getting things done. but we felt that in difficult times we had to manage it better. I had a business background, and I knew how to do more with less. We also voted against the regional district budget at that time. And much like the water issue, the regional district board was not happy because a number of years ago we had similar arguments when I asked and wanted a reservoir. So you have to stand up for your community on the budgets, stand up to other governments. Thank you.
Moving on to Anna.
So for our community, we have like a retirement community. So we have like a lot of people who are knowledgeable, and we should use that as like a fixed income group, like for the comparable to the tax for the other city, like such as outside of Victoria. You know, they are similar like location, like and they pay the less tax compared to the Sechelt coast. So think about ahead. I would like to say we don't spend money if we don't have it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Jerry.
Once again, it comes back to getting answers to questions. I've asked questions about spending at the District of Sechelt and at the SCRD. Do I have the answers? No, I didn't get them. So to answer your question is that as your mayor, one of the first actions that I would be doing is spending time in great detail going over the finances of both the District of Sechelt and the SCRD to determine where the money is being spent, how it's being spent, and are we receiving value for money. We have many people in our community, the demographic group, that are low-income seniors and other low-income individuals that are struggling. As the government, we need to be responsible with the money and with our taxpayers' money and look after our community.
Thank you, Jerry. Thomas.
So I'm used to managing large budgets. 7, 8 figure budgets has been my life for the last 10 years. I feel like this question is more about people being confident in how that money is being spent than necessarily the actual spending of the money. And coming back to the previous question, me providing transparency and visibility into that, I think is key here. I feel like if people understood how their tax money was being spent, they would be more supportive of changes in taxation. For the record, I'm not supportive of an 8% increase, but if we can be transparent about what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the community supports that, then the right decision will be obvious. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Brenda.
Thank you. So we have a commitment to infrastructure and other non-negotiable increases that give us an increase in our baseline budget numbers. And as Darnell, I think, already said, a 1% tax increase is approximately worth $90,000. So recently, when we did Trail Avenue, we suddenly had to replace 3 maintenance holes at the cost of $75,000 apiece. So you can see that 1% of tax does not go very far. And as candidate Shepherd said, you know, there's another way to keep taxes down, and that's by looking at our service levels. What is the community willing to give up to see lower taxes? Not a popular conversation, but happy to have it. The question compares us to Vancouver is apples and oranges, in my opinion. The root of our problem, as others have said, is that our budget is made up of 84% residential taxes, with business and industry making 13%. Vancouver, 56% residential, with business and making up the rest. And if so, let's look at Pell River, 65%, 20% difference. For the good of our community and our taxpayers, we need to want business and industry in Sechelt. I encourage everyone to remember that.
Thank you, Brenda. And Alton.
Thank you, Keith. So much of our infrastructure is nearing end of life, and it's more costly and requires more engineering and more permitting to replace it than it ever was to put it in the ground in the first place. On top of that, we have people wanting more and more services, which doesn't come without a cost either. I will give credit where credit's due. Mayor Milne's council approved a 3% tax increase annually that goes towards capital renewal. And we've kept that up. And I would hope that the next council sees the value in continuing that fund. The 1% tax increase that's been mentioned here costs the average homeowner about $16.20 a year. That being said, Sechelt does have that way higher percentage of residential tax base than most communities. So every tax increase hits homeowners. If we want to work towards keeping things manageable, we're going to need more commercial and industrial development, light manufacturing, tech jobs, even aircraft schools and airplane repair centers could go a long ways towards diversifying that tax base. I will say, I have voted against budgets in the past, and also infrastructure was cheaper 15 years ago. Why wasn't any of this replaced then?
Thank you, Alton. Cheryl.
Thank you. As a taxpayer, I don't like to see big tax hikes every year either. While we need to accomplish our goals, we need to get creative in looking for other methods of funding aside from relying on residential taxes. We need to make it easier on the general public to understand how we arrive at our budget and how it's allocated. And here, confidence and transparency is key.
Thank you, Cheryl. Donna.
It's a tough balance. Community expectations of our services, we've got aging infrastructure, we have a lot of needs. We need to prioritize our spending, focus on the priorities such as policing and road repairs, not the discretionary areas. And again, that's that wicked question, what are we willing to give up? Share ideas with other municipal governments on innovative ways to reduce costs instead of gathering to devise strategies to raise taxes. Let's continue to revitalize our downtown core so we get more business and an opportunity for increased tax bases. We need to look at ways to increase tax bases, raising the commercial versus residential property taxes. Diversify our tax base and really continue to look at funding opportunities. This council and mayor has done a tremendous job of funding. There is a lot of provincial and federal funding out there for small communities, but we need to speak real loud. As a rural community, we need to make our voices heard because a lot of that funding goes to big cities. So it's time that we really speak up and we really work hard and fight hard for that funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. We have two rebuttals to this question, starting with Warren. Before you go, Warren, Adam, I'm going to have to deny your rebuttal because you've already used one this evening. I'm sorry. So we'll start with Warren Allen. You have 30 seconds.
Sure. It was just in response to a comment that was made that just think about how much taxes we'll bring in by development. If the best argument a developer has coming to the table, that think about how much this is going to contribute to taxes, and we're not seeing any synergies here. 2 and 2 doesn't equal 5. I can't support things like that. So anyway, that was about it. Well, the other thing I was going to say, we also had first-year council member candidates should go through.
Thank you, Warren. John, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Okay, thanks. I want to compliment this council. They did get $14 million in grants. I'd observed that the Water Resource Center, we were able, by focusing on sustainability and being green, we got 20 million of grants and loans. I also want to remark that the Water Resource Center loans will be fully paid within 2 years, and don't believe that there's capacity issues. There's a lot of misinformation, and I encourage you to talk to me for the facts. Thanks.
Thank you, John. So that concludes our fourth question of the evening. For those just joining us at home, we're now moving into our fifth and final question, which will be followed by conclusions. Question 5 is regarding Highway 101. Havies Road in Davis Bay has been a hot topic for our association this year, not just because of the 99-lot Homai subdivision at the top of the road, but also because the BC Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, or MOTI, has partnered with the Shisha Nation in collaboration with Skohomish Nation to propose a Highway 101 alternate route study. This proposed highway ends at the bottom of Havies. What is your position on the Highway 101 bypass study ending on Havies? Would you prioritize the Highway 101 improvements? And how would you approach working with the Shisha and Skohomish nations and Moti on this issue as our next mayor and council? And we will start with Cheryl Cheng.
I thought I would get away from being first to answer all names. Of course not. So to answer the question, I think of course, it's fairly obvious that we need to find a different proposal to the current one. We don't need more traffic coming into Selma Park. First, we need to speak up at the Moti level. We need to fight for our voice and have it heard. Second, we need to work closely with the nation and study in more details and the impacts that the options that we will have at the table.
Thank you, Cheryl. On to Donna now.
Bypass ending at Havies is I think it sucks and I'm not happy with it and I don't understand why. So that would be my question. I don't understand why and I'd like to know why that is. We share many local issues with the Sechelt Nation. It's imperative that we work together and to achieve common goals and problem solve on mutual issues. We've got water, we've got highway, we've got BC ferries. These are infrastructure challenges that affect our whole community. So we need to sit around the table and communicate respectably and openly. This relationship, it's all about relationship building. With the Sechelt Nation, it's starting to happen. There is more collaboration. I have sat around the table from the federal perspective, and it takes trust and it takes time. But I do believe that open communication, respect and trust is there, and it's starting to happen. With Moti, it's the same thing. We need to be loud. We need to be, and I did say this in one of my last platforms that I said I'm going to go sit on the steps of the government office there, so set me up a seat. You're going to hear me.
Thank you, Donna. Next, Mickey.
Havies is not a highway. We do need a highway, but definitely not Havies. We have all seen the proposed options, but they don't include through the First Nation land. We require coordination between Sechelt, First Nation, and Victoria to fix this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mickey. Adam.
Hi, everyone here is going to reject Havies as the ultimate route where the alternate route links up with the highway. So I think it's a matter of going, as everyone's going to say, pressing Moti to come up with some other alternatives about where that road links up. Definitely, as Donna mentions, the relationship with the band is critical on many fronts. So this is just one item to be talking about. And the consultations that Moti are undertaking are going to finish in a report in the spring, and I think we pursue it then as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. John.
The study that they're conducting is costing them $1 million. I don't take time for that. We don't have a highway already. We have a goat trail, and what's just down the road is actually a parkway. Unfortunately, we have to take logging trucks and buses and everything else along our parkway. The suggestion to use Havies is absurd and based on a desktop study. People didn't come here to have a look at the road, much less assess the viability. So I've talked to Moti. We've appealed for several years to have the minister come to visit, and he has yet to do so. There's only one route for the long overdue real highway. I've talked with several Sechelt members, and they agree. It continues north of the airport, up here, behind Independent Foods, the hospital, through the hydro right-of-way to Trout Lake. I've commissioned studies on this. I've flown the route. I've driven to many of the areas. It'll cost $370 million to build it, and there are options to get it built and paid for. As mayor, I will work with the Sechelt chief and council so that we can partner when we go to Victoria to convince the province to support our project.
Moving on to Warren.
Hello. As one of apparently only 260 views and 3 likes, I watched the 17-minute Ministry of Highway July 2022 YouTube video of the BC Highway 101 alternate route planning study. It provided some 14 alignment options, of which 11 of them were considered viable. For the most part, the solutions appear to be the routes that are furthest from our communities, however, are the costliest items. One issue that Havies did not address is that I thought part of the solution, or part of the problem, was trying to find a secondary route from Gibsons to Sechelt, not Havies Road. Because, well, I don't know. Somebody come up with that idea. Anyway, I think we should be following the power lines into Sechelt, but that will require working with the Sechelt Nation, because obviously it crosses through some of their lands. But I would approach every solution by working with the Sechelt, Squamish Nations, the SCRD, Gibsons, and the Sechelt governments, because this affects all of us, and we all have issues within our jurisdictions that we have to address. The last comment was by the Modi was that there is no foreseeable need for a full end-to-end bypass based on demand alone, because the Sunshine Coast probably doesn't have the economic cost-benefit justifications.
Thank you, Warren. Moving on to Diane.
I don't think we should have a route that goes by the hydro lines. I mean, if there's ever an earthquake, we need that route, and to have those hydro lines possibly come down on a highway, to me, they don't go together. Unfortunately, the seasonal flooding and growing sea rise expected at 2030 around Davis Bay, and I do have a map that shows that, suggests that significant routing away from the Davis Bay curve, I call it, of the highway is required. The Havies site may not be taken by Modi maybe it will be taken for a new section of highway to connect at Selma Park Road instead of intersecting with the current highway at Havies. The OCP shows that there are unstable, hazardous soils along the current highway in Selma Park near Havies, and I've got the map here. So that's not a great place to build either, in terms of if there's an earthquake or whatever, or it'd be very expensive. We've learned that from, Sea-Watch sliding down in a similar kind of area. So we saw floods over the past year in different parts of BC, that sections of highway subject to natural forces were not well located or built to a strong enough climate disaster standard. So we can coordinate the highway design with Sechelt First Nation.
Thank you, Diane.
Thank you.
Moving on, Al.
Well, I think we can all agree that the highway cannot end at Havies Road. The original proposal is from Langdale to Earls Cove in the north. Any other proposal, not acceptable. That's simple. The work needs to start now so there's an end in sight. Maybe we could encourage them to build a section of the highway. Power line is the answer. Remember, we are one coast, one community. This is not a cliche. We're all in this together and must work together to solve the problems we have.
Thank you, Al. Chris.
This goes back to, for me, like question number 2 on the OCP, and the lack that the 4 jurisdictions don't have a comprehensive idea what to do with 101. This has been going on ever since I got here in 1979. What a great highway. We hate it, we love it, we hate it, we love it. It should be an absolutely beautiful highway, pedestrian, bikers, back and forth. All this stuff that we're doing right now is wrong. Joe Road drives me crazy every day. I go through that, seeing the $10 million they spent there and all the trees they took down for a couple of de-acceleration lanes. And anyway, so Havies, no, stupid, bad idea. We need to be working with the Sechelt Nation 100% on this. This is where the road stops. Really at this, I think we need to take that highway right over a wharf and take it up to Trout Lake. And I think the plan that Mr. Henderson referenced is worth looking at. There's a cost to it and it's doable. That way we get 101 back to the pedestrians, the taxpayers, Davis Bay, the whole strip should be absolutely world class. And that's what I want to see happen.
Thank you, Chris. Tim.
Thank you. I've made it clear at previous all-candidate meetings that bypass study was a complete joke. A causeway around the bay, a bridge over the inlet, and then the Havies option, which doesn't even bypass the Selma Park S-curve. Lobbying the province to improve the safety of Highway 101 is one of my top priorities. A bypass is at least 10 to 15 years away, so a short-term priority is to demand that Modi repaint the lines. As I'm sure you're all aware, in several sections, there is no painted shoulder, and the middle yellow line is so worn down, in many places, it's no longer visible. And I would also like to see some more pedestrian crossings. The longer-term plan needs to be taken seriously by Modi. Following the BC Hydro right-of-way appears to be the way to go. I participated in the July information session, and the Havies option does follow the right-of-way from Gibson's through Roberts Creek, but then it stops at the airport and runs down Havies to join the existing 2-lane highway. When asked by myself and others why that proposed bypass cannot continue along the right-of-way, past the airport and into or through Sechelt, the response was, it's not viable, and they didn't elaborate why. I would like to know why. We need to involve Sechelt and Squamish nations and get answers from the ministry and lobby to come up with a real solution.
Moving on, Darnelda.
So any route that doesn't address the congestion in the Davis Bay Summit Park area is not acceptable. This council, along with the SCRD and the town of Gibsons, addressed the inadequate consultation done that produced the study with 3 ministers, including the Minister of Transportation at the Union of BC Municipality Conference a month ago. We also discussed it with the Ministry of Transportation staff. Last week, I had a follow-up meeting with Ministry of Transportation staff. The advocacy that we did as Team Sunshine Coast and the feedback from the community had staff indicating that they need to revisit it with the greater community before identifying any alternative route. Work on this project will not be done in the short term, so we have time to do the work required to get it right. After numerous conversations, the District of Sechelt staff and Sechelt Nation staff have finally started meeting and are talking about these things at that level. At the elected level, Chief Paul and I meet a minimum of once a month, and I have discussed this perspective with him, particularly around Havies. There is a regional growth strategy that is in process. The base information has been put together. That involves all the governments on the Sunshine Coast. So I want to say thank you to my elected colleagues and to the greater community for stepping up. Thanks.
Thank you. Moving on, Darren.
Thank you. So we have a number of problems right now. We have an existing highway with issues. So we have to have concurrent demands to the province, fix the existing highway and repaint it. I'd also like to see a second ferry. We need to demand that as well. We need to go to the province upon election and ask for a second ferry and get the existing highway fixed. Once there's a commitment for the highway to have funding and engineering pieces in place, we then tell the province that Havies doesn't work. It's funneling traffic to a set of lights that's near failure. As a council, and as Darnell has mentioned, we need to continue and to put our big boy and big girl pants on and continue to work with the Sechelts and say to them that this is a route that they know has some safety issues, and talk about the route that was proposed before, behind the airport, down the Hydro right-of-way, and near Ted Dixon Park. We need to work with them. We need to show respect. They know we need a new highway. We need to get together with them soon, if in fact we get approval and engineering, and get the highway away from Havies. But we also need to get a second ferry and fix the existing highway. It's unsafe. Thank you.
Thank you, Darren. Anna.
Yeah, I totally agree with Doral said about the highway and second ferry. And also, the up levels electronic toll highway would be exist load to the field, to the rural community along the Highway 101. And also the municipal transportation and infrastructure current proposes this highway already for the 4 lanes to the highways load, and for the highways project, I think some they need to change like maybe like 25 or 50 houses, and because the climate change and ocean arrays, so this is the communities facing the problem. So we should, as a council, we should address this first, and for the local, all these difficulty things for the water shortage, and also local, all this these difficult things. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Jerry.
As BC residents, BC taxpayers, and residents of the Sunshine Coast, I think it's important that we recognize that we deserve to have a safe road, a safe highway, and a reliable transportation on the ferry system. How many stories do you hear? I hear lots. The people that are suffering because they're stuck. There's no ferry. They're stuck because the road's closed, and people are suffering. So we deserve to have a good highway and good transportation. This is going to take a collaborative effort by all levels of government. It's going to take pressure and demands from us locally, to the provincial and federal levels, and to our fellow local governments saying, it's time. We need something better. We deserve something better, and we deserve it soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. On to Thomas.
I need to moderate my response here because it's still before 9 p.m. and this is a family show, but it's a stupid idea. It's injecting all of the traffic into an accident hotspot. I don't need a minute and 15 for this one. Yeah, it's stupid. What I will say before I hand the mic over is what we do need to do though is not choose the path of least resistance, but instead figure out what the right way to solve this is, and then figure out how to make that happen. And it just feels like we're not doing that here.
Thank you, Thomas. Brenda.
Thanks, Thomas. I'm starting to feel real repetitive at the end of the line here. But I'm not in favor of any route that enters any part of Davis Bay or Selma Park. Any route that does not bypass Selma Park to get to Sechelt and the hospital is not appropriate in my mind. We met with Modi during UBCM, as Darnell has already said, around the alternate route study as well as other issues. We expressed our concern, that's one word for it, over the zero amount of consultation that took place with the residents of Sechelt prior to the report being released. Council received a presentation, not a consultation. We should not confuse consultation with feedback, which is what they then asked the public for. Sechelt needs to be a partner in this conversation with both the Sechelt Nation and Modi, not just a receiver of information. We'll continue to meet with the Sechelt Nation, Modi, both ministers and staff, to further this conversation.
Thank you, Brenda. And Alton.
Sucked going last. The highway study, as currently consulted on by Modi, is a farce, plain and simple. Others have spoken to this already. It's just an expensive, feel-good attempt to placate the residents of Sechelt who asked for this in the first place. This community knows that Havies is not a viable alternative, not to mention that it doesn't do anything for improving conditions through the rest of Selma Park into Sechelt. The Modi team still will not share the scoring matrix or talk about the other options that were removed from consideration and why they were removed. I think that's where we need to start. I mean, Modi did us a huge favor a few years ago and they replaced all the reflectors on the highway. They didn't even last the winter. I mean, we know we have problems here. Any possible plan needs to work for our whole community, settler and Indigenous alike. It's impossible to promise some solution or other options at this time without working through all of those with the Sechelt and Squamish nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Alton. That concludes the answers, but there is one rebuttal. Tim, you want to rebut? You have 30 seconds when you're ready.
Thank you, Keith. I'm going to use my rebuttal just to say very quick, kudos to all the candidates up here. 75 seconds to answer these questions is very difficult. It was not an easy task. And also I've noticed a few candidates have taken my lead and are making themselves available for coffee. I think that's great. Alton, I've been there every Tuesday and Thursday for the last few weeks from 9:30 to 11. Tomorrow will be my last day. I've met a few people, and it was a good discussions that we've had.
Great, thank you, Tim. All right, so that concludes the question and answer part of the evening, and we'll move into conclusions where you'll have a quick 30 seconds to sum up your evening. Possibly the last time you get to speak to a big group like this. So, We will start with Mr. Alan Holt.
Marvelous, darling. Well, I guess I'll get a rebuttal. I would like to thank you all for taking the time to question all of us on our reasons for running for council. We are facing a water supply and management crisis. I think everybody's aware of that. Total tax bill paid for past inept councils is north of $17 million and counting, and still no water. How is that even possible? The answer is a lack of leadership and political will. Holy hot dog.
It's a lot
Me
quicker
of all people.
It's a lot quicker than a minute 15. Sorry about that. Thank you, Alan. Chris.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to address my candidates that are running for council. All of you guys, thanks for coming out. It's been a slice. We may get in, we may not get in. If I don't get in, I hope you guys, whoever are successful, carry the vision forward. The need to consolidate the 4 levels of government on the coast, get a comprehensive program about how we're going to move it forward. All these big issues touch it. We need to bring the coast together to get these issues done. So good luck, all of you, and hopefully I get to see you down the road.
Thanks, Chris. All right, and next, Tim.
So thank you to everyone for your participation in this very important democratic process. For a community to work for all, the council must work for all people. If elected, I will work with my fellow elected officials and district staff. I will liaise with and lobby the appropriate levels of government, and I will get things done. With your vote, I hope to become an integral part of our decision-making process and advocate for a better Sechelt for all. Most importantly, I urge everyone, please get out and vote this Saturday.
Thank you, Tim. Darnelda.
Over the previous 2 terms, including under one of the current mayoralty candidates, the District of Sechelt let staff go and had other knowledgeable staff leave at a huge financial cost and a loss of institutional knowledge. The working environment was toxic. We had difficulty attracting qualified employees. As mayor over this term, we have reestablished a quality staff environment and we got things done. Last Friday, there was a list in the Coast Reporter. To continue getting things done, on October 15th, vote Darnelda Seegers for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Darnelda. Darren.
Thanks everyone for coming. My name's Darren Inkster. I've had 16 years previous experience on council. One of my highlights was the purchase and development of Mission Point Park. What a beautiful Stanley Park gem for the Sunshine Coast. My kids have grown up in this area. My heart is in this area. The buck stops with Darren Inkster. Vote on the 15th of October. There's hope. Vote Inkster.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
And Anna.
Thank you for everybody. Due to the English is my second language, I have too much to say, but when I'm nervous, I say little. But since I decided to run the council, I want to focus on design and campaign for the public health. I'm going to encourage the community to join that outdoor fitness for the adult and especially for the seniors.
Thank you, Anna. Next up is Jerry.
First of all, I want to thank you, the public, you the people. You're what make it happen. You're what give us the hope, the drive, and the will to do this. I also want to thank all my fellow candidates for sharing their information and their knowledge over the last weeks. I have listened, I have learned, and I am prepared to move forward as your mayor for the District of Sechelt. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Thomas.
30 seconds. Go. Okay, so please go on the 15th and vote. I choose people that you have confidence that don't necessarily have all the answers today, but will work to get them and can rapidly solve complex problems. I think I could be one of those people. I hope I get your support, but I really hope that we get the right team because we've got a lot of work to do. I also really wish that this event was open mic because I think that that would have really helped people think on their feet. Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. Next up, Brenda.
This term has been challenging. I'm proud of how we've all responded as leaders. I'm proud to play part in creating a culture and serving on a team that has little drama and lots of results to show for effective teamwork and respectful work culture. My name is Brenda Rowe, and I want to keep working on the challenges that this community faces. I would be honored and grateful for your vote on October 15th. Thank you to Davis Bay for hosting, to all the community and associations for being involved, and to Keith for your moderating, and to our timekeeper.
Thank you, John. All right, next up, Alton.
Thank you to everybody for coming out tonight, and thank you to the Community Association for putting this event together. On October 15th, I would obviously appreciate your support and your vote, but if not, that's okay too. Think about who you want shaping Sechelt over the next 4 years, and remember that a protest vote doesn't help shape our community. Also, please remind your friends to get out and vote. For more information about me and the issues as I see them, visit altontoth.info. Thank you.
Thank you, Alton. Cheryl.
Thank you all for coming. While you're not seeing any of my signs along the roads, I encourage you to remember my name, Cheryl Chang, on October 15th, and vote for a loud, fighting, fresh voice on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Donna.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. You've asked some amazing questions. You've given us some amazing questions. I'm a really passionate person, and it drives what I do. I know it's a privilege to serve, to provide servant leadership, and I look forward to that. I have great passion for here. I'm going to die here, not tonight or in the near future, but soon. But thank you for coming. Okay.
Thank you, Donna. And next up is Mickey.
Over the next 4 years, the new council will face many challenges, issues that are important to our community. I pledge to be accessible to you and ensure the views are heard in council. I will work hard to contribute to open and effective council that works for a better community for everyone. Thank you for all joining us here, and thank you for your questions.
Thank you, Mickey. Adam.
Thanks very much for everyone for staying. I hope it's been worth it for everyone, that it's helped answer some questions in your mind. I obviously want you to consider putting someone from a community association on the council. And it's not just because of me, but I think you've got a future councillor in Katie Klug here, as we do in other associations. So please consider putting someone new on the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And John.
We need action and results on several fronts: water, housing, safety, and so many other things. My commitment is straightforward. I'll deliver real results to make Sechelt even better. I have the professional experience, and I've done it before. I ask that you give me the opportunity to be of service to Sechelt again. Vote John Henderson for Mayor of Sechelt, and thank you everyone for coming out and for all of you online. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Warren.
It's so nice to see so many familiar faces here this evening. For those of you who don't know me, maybe just lean over and ask the person beside you what they think of this guy, and I could only hope that they'll say good things about me. Consider voting for candidates that have spoken for community and that have clearly put community first. So on October 15, vote for Diane McLaughlin, Darren Inkster, and Warren Allen. Thank you.
Thank you, Warren. Moving on, Diane.
Last but not least, vote for me, Diane McLaughlin, for a livable Sechelt and a much more open council. It's not livable if we don't have a reliable tap water and a more honest government that is fair about housing development and infrastructure service levels and cost. I asked Warren to run again to help get some very community-minded people on council. Vote for people you can trust, even if it's just one or two people. Vote for you and for yours to protect the public interest and the world for our kids and our grandkids.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you.
And just before we go, a little bit of housekeeping. I will remind the in-house audience that there is a box back there. Please write down your questions for the candidates with your contact information, and we'll make sure to get it to them, and they'll have the chance to respond to you. I have to thank you all very much for your attendance tonight, and I thank you, the candidates, as you push through your last few days of your campaign. I sincerely thank you as a citizen of this community for you applying for a job where it pays the shit, and you can never have a lonely wander through the grocery store again. The work that happens in our municipal offices are paramount importance to our future, as we see right now. This meeting will be available on the Davis Bay Community Association YouTube channel, and I think all candidates deserve a round of applause. Also, if you would like to be a member of the Davis Bay Community Association, they have a sign up right out there. There are very few things that can get you something for $5, and that is one of them. No, it's $5. Yeah, it's a deal. Inflation pricing. Oh, you paid right now? $10? Oh, it's $10 apparently. So please do get out and vote on October the 15th. It is our democratic right, and in this country we have lots of agency. You can vote for the Sechelt members at Davis Bay Elementary, the Sechelt Senior Center, or West Sechelt in West Sechelt Elementary, 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. on Saturday. On behalf of the thousands behind the scenes and Todd LeBlanc, sound design, doing this for us, I thank you all, and I wish you safe passage through the night. Thank you, and drive safe.